that was fighting for gay rights, and people were killed.
Nobody was killed at Stonewall.
Nobody was killed.
Aja's career is a very impressive yet also sort of chaotic legacy that fans have been able to witness over the past couple of years. That's why I'm so happy to say that for this video, Aja agreed to be interviewed by me so that we can get a much better understanding of the successes and obstacles that she dealt with in her time as a performer. This means that Aja officially joins Pangina Heels and Mini Cooper as the third inductee into the Interviewed by Green Gay Hall of Fame. So let's get a quick celebration for that.
Yes! Yes!
But before we start, if you want to tip Aja on Venmo or PayPal, the information will be in the description. Also, make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and follow me on Twitter at GreenGayYT. Now, back to the video. Aja is one of the most iconic queens to come out of RuPaul's Drag Race. Although she's had quite the tumultuous career. I mean, just look at the roller coaster ride that was the relationship between her and the fanbase. People went from loving her, to not really liking her, to loving her again, hating her again, until finally she's reached the point now where she's mostly celebrated for her talent ability. After all, she pretty much left no crumbs when it came to her opportunity of being on television. Although that being said, there was a lot more to her story than we got to see from the surface level. So then, how did Aja go from being a queen that had been able to accomplish so much in her career to currently being at a point in her life where she feels she's once again that starving artist that is struggling to meet ends meet?
Let me tell you something. I'm gonna be real right now. Ever since then, like, now I'm living my regular life. I live my domesticated life. I do my stuff. But like, because of all that stuff and everything, and people are always gonna be like, oh, it's your fault. Like, I can't get work. So this year, I have barely worked. I've been doing a lot of like underground gigs, television gigs, entertainment stuff, and ballroom stuff. But like, when it comes to like performances, bitch, I'm one of the most elite performers from Drag Race. I can't get booked. It's like people are like, oh, Aja, oh. And it's funny, but it's really not.
When we look at Aja's Drag Race career, the effort she had to make so that she could survive in the world was something that wasn't new to her. Whether it was trying to live up to this masculine persona that many people in her environment expected her to be, or just generally having to filter herself to make sure that she wouldn't come off too strong to people. So it ended up being one of the main things she kept in mind, especially when she started doing small drag queen contests in order to appeal to a more general audience.
And this was that was like where the whitewashing of Aja really came. People really expect you to be like, hi, my name is blah blah blah, and I'm da da da, and like that wasn't me. Because when I first got there, I was like, bitch, what's good? Out of here. They didn't like that. They would be like, oh, she's so ghetto, she's so ratchet. But I got my foot and I started to like do the competitions. But to be honest with you, where it really combined the worlds for me was I started to vogue in my drag performances because I already knew how to. And that's when people started being like, oh, there's something about her that kind of sets her different.
What made Aja's performance style so special is that she had first started out being within the ballroom scene, learning the classic moves that people who vogue tend to incorporate in their shows. From her perspective, there was a clear difference between the ballroom scene and the drag queen community of New York City. Yet when she officially started performing in drag, mostly out of wanting to get in touch with her feminine side while also making some side money, the people that watched her noticed that there was something unique about Aja's drag style. Whenever she'd get into a song, there was clear influences of ballroom with the moves she'd do to fit the music. After all, she was the stunty queen in the scene. Yet originally, her first drag name was actually Zendel, after a Mortal Kombat character. But she quickly grew tired of it, making her new drag name Katana, which is also a Mortal Kombat character. Ultimately, she changed her mind yet again, changing her name to Asia. But some people would mispronounce it as Aja, so she just kind of went with it.
It was really supposed to be Asia, but like people kept pronouncing it as Aja, like when I would write it. So I was just like, girl, fuck it. No, but like I made up this bullshit lie for my Drag Race audition. I was like, yeah, I got it from Bollywood music, and that's a lie. I made that shit up just to make it sound more interesting.
I'm not sure what the newer fans of the series who haven't watched the older seasons think of Aja. More so because at the time that the season 9 cast was announced, there was a lot of talk about Aja. Her promo look got some good reactions from people, so maybe that meant she'd be delivering the looks for the season. Her makeup style in the promo was a key elevation in her drag aesthetic at the time, that inadvertently foreshadowed the struggles that she would later face in the season regarding her makeup. Since we all know that the season 9 promo was filmed months after season 9 had already finished filming, it's safe to say that she spent the time period before filming the promos in trying to improve the quality of her makeup, which actually ended up being a key theme to her time on season 9. Many weren't drawn to her makeup because, as the show ends up pointing out, was a stark difference from the photos that she was uploading to her social media. Aja does admit that it wasn't a good idea to try to be experimental with her makeup while on the show, but the pressure of the competition makes queens want to do things to make them stand out.
That shit still haunts me till this day. Like, I have people, you know how weird it is to like meet people and they're like, oh, like, I get messages all the time. What did you do to your skin? What did you do to your skin? It's nothing, because I've never had crazy skin like that. Like, I'm like, I've never had crazy acne. I have never had none of that. And that's like a narrative that came because of the whole Facetune situation. And also, people made it seem like I changed my face so much, but they showed pictures on the show that I took after I filmed the show, and professional portraits at that. Before Drag Race, I was not even painting like I was painting on Drag Race. I went on there and I was just so nervous about being like, not fucking it up, that I was like, I need to create this new look. And then, baby, I hated the look.
That being said, throughout the promo period of season 9, there was some fans that began drawing correlations between Aja's makeup style in the promos to that of Naomi Smalls, accusing her of copying Naomi. It was sort of expected that fans would compare the new batch of queens to previous alumni, so in a way, it wasn't anything new. After all, Aja and Naomi were already friends with each other by the time they both got on their season. And to be fair, it's sort of the norm for queens to draw inspiration from each other. When the time came for her to prepare her audition tape for season 9, she wasn't in a very good place in her life. First of all, she wasn't doing very good financially, which is a big component to preparing a runway package for the show. But not only that, she was living with her ex-boyfriend at the time that was actually a really toxic relationship that may have impacted her mental well-being, especially while getting ready for the competition.
I was so poor. I like that was the thing. Like, when I auditioned for season 9, oh God, like, I was just in a really messed up situation. I was like living with my ex, and like, you know, we were just not really in a healthy relationship already. So when we broke up, things got really toxic. And then I was like, I need to get out of here. Like, I was like, honestly, if I stay here, I'm going to myself. And I was like, I need to get out. So when I auditioned for Drag Race, I had no idea that they were gonna really take me. I was just like, oh. I was like, oh, you want me? But yeah, I didn't know that I was going to get on the show. And when I got the call, I will never forget, I was in Walgreens up the block buying eye contact solution. I had a gig that night and they were like, you're on the show. And it was like an equal, like, yes. Like, oh my God, like, I get to get out of this shithole. But then it was also like, fuck, what am I gonna do? Like,
so when she got the call back from the production of World of Wonder confirming her as a contestant, it was both exciting and shocking news. It was now a test to see how much of a good player Aja was going to be when she entered the workroom doors. Only there was one issue. Aja wasn't happy about the way things were turning out in the early weeks of season 9. On episode 1, the first impression that we are given about Aja is that she's this sort of rich young gay queen that was flaunting all of her unique outfits that she bought just for the race. But like, that wasn't the case at all. Do you know how much money Aja spent on her runway package for season 9? The answer might surprise you, because she was literally too broke to get anything.
I bought like 3 pairs of shoes. I didn't have nothing. It's funny because that first episode is saying, like, I want to be color. And like, they made it seem like I was so cocky and so bougie, but like, I was like, girl. And I felt so intimidated by like the girls pulling out their custom made garments and their custom this and their custom that. And I was like, girl, I was like, it's clipped. I was like, my goal is to last as long as possible. Then when I get off the show, I'm gonna make it seem like I won.
When Aja talks about season 9 sometimes, it seems like she doesn't hold it to a very high standard because she wasn't able to showcase herself the way she wanted, as well as her makeup skills not being up to par. But honestly, while it's true that it wasn't the most successful of runs, she still accomplished a lot. By episode 3, they had a sewing challenge that should have been right up her alley since she's actually really talented at sewing up outfits. But as we know, she would end up landing in the bottom 2 for the episode. The Princess Disaster fiasco had layers to it because once the top and the bottom queens were announced, Aja genuinely thought that she was in the top 3 for the challenge, thus setting the stage for her to totally come crashing down the moment the judges began to bombard her with negative critiques, eventually leading her to confront Valentina on Untucked in what seemed like a vessel to be able to let out her anger. In fact, she was so upset when she found out she was in the bottom that she almost considered quitting the show altogether.
I mean, I honestly was like scarred forever. Like, after the disaster challenge, I was like scarred forever when they were like, they read me for my makeup so bad on the stage. Like, and I don't think they show all of it, but like they said, I honestly went to the hotel room that day and I was like, I might just leave. Like, I was like, I don't know. Like, I might just like leave the hotel and just go wander off and maybe somebody will find me. Like, that's how I felt because I just felt so ugly and I felt like I was already, at that time, I already had like really bad gender dysphoria. It's something I dealt with since I was like younger. So when they said that, I was just kind of like, wow, like I will never be beautiful. Like I will never be to standard or up to par. And it just made me feel so, I don't know, like nothing.
Aja's Linda Evangelista speech is too much of a relic for me to not talk about it in this video. That episode of Untucked, Aja was completely over the fact that Valentina had landed in the top 3 after showcasing one of the least impressive looks of the episode. It made Aja come across to many as bratty, and many fans took it a little too personally since at the time Valentina's stands were just at another level of unhinged. What's more is that it wasn't just that she had been placed in the bottom, it was that she had been made to believe, at least in her mind, that she was actually doing a really good job, to the point where many of the other queens were shocked that she'd eventually get put in the bottom 2 over Pheromone. While it was a bit of a shocking moment, maybe production didn't want to have 2 queens that weren't necessarily known as performers to give us an underwhelming lip sync. So having Aja bulldoze her way through a lip sync seemed like the viable alternative. The funny part is that apparently Aja didn't even know most of the words to the song, improvising her whole performance.
I knew the song, but I didn't know the lyrics. I was like, I knew that there was like, I need a hero. That's all I knew. So I said, okay, let's go. To be honest with you, I was like, there's no way that Kimura sending me home. Like, there was like, no, like I said, I love you down, sister, but like, there's no way. This is just no way. So I said, you know what? I wasn't even that shook. I was just pissed because the whole thing in Untucked had just happened. And I was just, I was mad at Nina. And I was mad because the judges and the situation, because like, I was just like so pressed.
Once the first episodes of season 9 aired, there was a big realization by people that had been hyping up Aja in the preseason that maybe Aja wasn't going to be slaying the season as they once expected. Which is normal. I mean, hearing a big name tends to make you hyper focus on a contestant where you kind of don't provide much leeway for them to make mistakes. What's funny is that in the months leading up to the season 9 cast reveal, Aja made sure to spread rumors online that she had actually slayed the competition in order to create conversation within show promoters that they needed to book Aja as soon as possible because she was possibly going to be winning the season, which explains a lot. I kind of like to think about how many other queens have gone to Reddit after filming their seasons to spread as many false rumors about their time competing as possible. But anyways, while Aja's run on season 9 wasn't the most noteworthy since she never won any challenges, received a fair share of negative critiques, and got an edit that didn't make her look the most personable, yet she did show the reasons why she was considered such an important performer within the New York City drag scene. Her 2 lip syncs are considered to be not just some of the best of the season, but also from the franchise as a whole, especially her lip sync against Nina Bonina Brown, that was so evenly matched in terms of which of the girls were doing a better job. I still to this day get a rush of serotonin whenever I watch it. Not just that, but both Aja and Nina had a lot to offer in terms of not just drag, but also the storylines that they were each representing. By the time they were both done lip syncing, it was announced that Nina had won the lip sync, and it was officially over for Aja, who would end up placing 9th on the season. Aja wasn't too fond of her time on the season, which is why when it came for her to make her return to the finale and reunion for the season, she was gonna give everyone the TV that they wanted. If you thought she had no filter during the competition, her sound bites on the reunion episode are reality TV gold. In a way, it sort of paved the way for her future. Production ended up telling Aja months later that the moments the reunion for season 9 aired, they knew that she would be a shoo-in for All Stars, which is very interesting because I always thought that Aja was brought back due to her storyline of being a fan favorite that went home early, but it seems that she was cast more so because she's a genius at giving us dramatic moments. Yet production couldn't have predicted the level of elevation that Aja would bring her second time around. As Trixie Mattel likes to say, the real race is after your season has finished airing. Aja, despite the chaotic run she had on season 9, was able to make the most of her time, becoming a very highly booked queen from the season, traveling the world doing her stunts. At the same time, for most of her life, she's always been a hustler. Even her getting getting into drag was partially because she knew that she'd be able to make some money performing in clubs, but also having a good time doing it while getting in touch with her feminine side. This was significant because at the time that she started doing drag was when she was deep into the ballroom scene. There was some inner debates that she was having on whether she should introduce the drag character of Aja within the ballroom scene, or leave them both as separate entities. Since within ballroom, she had been performing as a male figure, so she wasn't necessarily drawing the connection. Nevertheless, 2017 would be a life-changing year for Aja because not only had season 9 aired, but by the end of the year, it would be announced that she had officially been cast in the 3rd season of All Stars. Yet by this point, the impression that she left after her run on season 9 didn't make people the most excited about her return, especially when there was many other queens in the franchise that fans had been asking to see again for years. It's for that reason that when the All Stars 3 promo was finally released, many people online were of course complaining about it, saying that she never should have been cast on All Stars to begin with. Although, while it may have been a bit annoying, Aja was fully aware of the storyline that she had during All Stars 3, so it was really only a matter of time before people were going to get the chance to change their perception of her. When Aja made her brand new entrance into the workroom, there was a clear elevation in her drag style. You could tell that she had strengthened her makeup skills along with preparing herself a lot more for what would be expected of her in the challenges to come. Honestly, everyone was shocked by the way that Aja had rebranded herself upon her return, including the producers of the show itself. Like, when Aja says that for season 9 she sort of just put a bunch of stuff together and called it her runway package versus what she brought to All Stars 3, it's not just the difference in quality through her hiring designers, but also the way that all her looks were really sharing more about her as a person. Remember when I said that Aja only spent a couple $100s on some fabrics to make her looks for season 9? Well, this time around she spent close to $40,000 on just her runway package alone. It was intriguing too, since at one point you were super excited to see each episode to see what she was gonna bring on the runway.
I even had this kind of feedback from the producers too. Like, they were like, whoa, girl, like you came back a completely different person. I'm like, bitch, because I have money now. And I was like, you know, when I was here before, I was not, first of all, I wasn't in a good position because I had just came out of this toxic living situation to go straight to film a show. That's not healthy. It's like one toxic situation to another.
On episode 1, Aja's talent show was significant in changing the minds of people that were rolling their eyes about her return. What's surprising is that as iconic as it was to see the layers that she had brought to this number, it was originally intended to be a much bigger spectacle than it already was. Apparently, she had talked to production about including some stuff like a giant swing that she would begin the performance from, paying homage to the House of Ninja, a popular group within Ballroom. Yet, since production told her last minute that they couldn't approve the giant swing, she had to improvise most of her set. For example, the block that she jumped off from was a last minute addition.
And I was like, I need a swing, I need this, I need that. The block wasn't even supposed to be part of it. And then the day of, they were like, so yeah, we couldn't get you a swing because we couldn't clear it, and we can't do flowers. But I was sitting there like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I was in my hotel room on YouTube, and I was watching videos of Leomi, which is, she's an icon for femme queen performance in the ballroom. There was a video where she had jumped off of a stage into a zip, and I was like, yes. And the thing was, like, I already vogued, so I was like, bitch, okay. So I was like, give me a platform and I'm gonna jump off of it into a zip. And that's what I did. But the only thing was that we had to record it like 2 or 3 times. So like, I didn't choreograph it. I freestyled until I got there. So when it was pieced together, people loved it. But to me, I was like, ooh, it looks so sloppy. But like, I was just like, it is what it is. And I was like literally freaking out in between because my corset broke, my nails were falling off. I was there like, oh.
We all know that her All-Stars run was stellar. Even on episode 2, Aja was still one of the most talked about queens after she pretty much solidified her redemption. That same episode was the Divas Live Challenge, where Aja did a pretty good job at Amy Winehouse, despite the restrictions that came with the character. For instance, Amy Winehouse was the only celebrity among the entire cast of Divas that was actually dead in real life, which was fine, but to her it felt like there was some sort of unwritten rule that you shouldn't make fun of a dead person's struggles too much, given a big part of Amy Winehouse's story was her having several substance abuse issues. Although regardless, she would instead rely on Amy's mannerisms. And to me, she really did sell the performance. Plus, some would have thought that since she delivered the best redemption look of the episode in the runway, that at least she could have placed in the top 3. Yet, placing safe for the challenge wasn't the end of the world either. On a lighter note, some fun tea about the behind the scenes of All Stars 3 was that Aja would sometimes escape her hotel room to go shopping at the mall. She'd also always hang out with Trixie and Ben de la Creme because they were all sneaking out of their rooms. As you know, they put tape on the queen's hotel room door so that production can know if any of them try to leave their room. But Ben de la Creme figured out a way to put the tape back from inside the room so that it would seem like they had never taken it off. Ben then taught this trick to the other queens in the cast, and suddenly everyone was able to escape their hotel room. By this point, Ben de la Creme was being placed in the top 2 for pretty much every single challenge, and Aja agreed with all the wins that Ben de la Creme got this season.
I agree. Ben was carrying. I was like, go ahead, bitch. I was like, you know what? I don't even give a f about I win or not. Ben didn't give a f if you won or not either. That's the crazy thing. Ben was giving very much. She was like, girl, I don't even want to be here. And I would be like, girl, well, you carrying, so don't do nothing. And she was telling me for a week, she was like, I don't even want to be here, girl. She was like, they're doing a lot.
Aja's trajectory on the season would start to get rocky when by episode 3, they had an improv challenge where she didn't exactly do the best delivery of her character. What confused her the most about this episode wasn't necessarily the negative critiques, but more so why all of a sudden there was a bottom 3 in the season, which caused her to be dragged into the bottom, affecting her track record. Regardless of how you feel she did in the improv challenge, it's hard to deny that her runway look was one of the best in the episode. Another story about this episode was the real life reaction that Aja had while at a viewing party. At one point in the episode, Milk is so disappointed to be in the bottom 3 along with Aja and Chi Chi that she mentioned in her confessionals that the other queens in the bottom were simply not at her level. That same night, Aja was at a viewing party in New York City, and suddenly it felt like the spirit of Crystal LaBeija took over her because she delivered such an iconic speech. In the video, Aja says that it's funny that Milk would say something like that because Milk is one of the lowest placing queens along with Aja to return to All Stars, as they both placed 9th on their original seasons. She also points out that all of Milk's achievements up to that point had been out of drag, which refers to Milk's many male-presenting modeling gigs.
I'm skinnier and thinner and more beautiful, and I will always have more estrogen running in my blood because I was born with 2 X chromosomes. I don't have an Adam's apple. You could never clock me, darling. So take your ponytail and wind it back up into that little black box and use that top wig to cover your face. Because your mother on this evening, you look like Aquaria on testosterone, darling.
The clip of Aja's speech eventually began to go viral online, and Milk began to get a lot of hate from the fans. But shortly after this, Milk and Aja were both booked together for a viewing party, and they addressed the drama. Aja apologized for what was said, and they joked about how they were both just drunkenly complaining about the show. Yet the speech in itself will always be a relic. On episode 4, we get to the Snatch game. During this challenge, Aja played the character of Crystal LaBeija, where she did a pretty decent performance. If you didn't know, Crystal LaBeija is a queen that pretty much started the ballroom scene. If you'd like to know more about her, check out the documentary called The Queen from 1968. When watching the episode, the few times that we actually got to see her character answer RuPaul's questions, she was pretty much funny with her responses. But it was clear that they edited out a lot of her best bits since she would end up placing safe for the episode. It's a shame that they didn't show more of it because it was such a well-executed Snatch game. It also made a lot of people learn about who Crystal was to begin with.
I was like, girl, so the way it works is they ask a question and we all answer it again and again and again and again. I thought I had a lot of funny moments, and I was just like, I feel like I was really upset when I saw the episode. I actually reached out to the producers afterwards and was like, what the f is this?
But anyways, that same episode, Shangela won the challenge and the lip sync for Your Legacy. But just as she's about to show the lipstick of the queen she chose to eliminate, she gives a speech that strongly implies that the queen she's going to send home is Trixie Mattel. But in a last-minute twist, she revealed Chi Chi DeVayne's lipstick. Aja says that while she was watching all of this unfold from the back of the stage, all she could think about was how in the world she didn't win the challenge. She then says that had she been in the top 2, she would have fully made out with Ben de la Creme. Because during the Shangela versus Ben lip sync, Ben kept going up to Shangela and seemingly asking for a kiss, given that the song was called I Kissed a Girl by Katy Perry. You can tell that Aja was educated when it came to a lot of queer culture from the older decades. It's the reason that she knew who Crystal LaBeija was from the time that she was a teenager sneaking into the ballroom scene. Which is why it was so weird to see the judges try to sell this narrative that she was an ignorant young gay kid that knew nothing about the people people that paved the way for her. When I put my tinfoil hat on, I like to think that by All Stars 3 episode 5, at this point, Trixie had been fading behind like crazy in terms of track record. Maybe production wanted to throw her a bone by getting Aja out of the way, who at this point had been doing a better job than Trixie throughout the competition. But I'm not RuPaul, so who knows. This episode had a controversial outcome because the bottom two ended up being Aja and Shangela. By this point, it was Aja's second time in the bottom with 1 challenge win. But for Shangela, it was her first time in the bottom after 2 challenge wins. This made it so that if you were basing it off track record alone, then it would be Aja's time to go. But the decision isn't as easy when you look at all the variables around the two queens' trajectories. Because Aja's first time in the bottom 3 was sort of weird considering while she didn't do the best in the improv challenge, her runway was among the best of the episode. There was also never any consistency when it came to the judges incorporating a bottom 3 over a bottom 2. Yet most of all, Aja's outfit for this episode was miles ahead better than Shangela's, to the point where even the queens themselves thought that Aja was most likely gonna be winning the challenge. To top it off, the weirdest part of the episode was the weird soup can challenge. That was one of the lamest things that came from this season, and the queens thought so too.
It was absolutely ridiculous. I was sitting there like, I thought when it says supermodel, I was like, oh, bitch, we're gonna be like models holding cans? That's bad.
The soup can challenge was really weird to watch on TV because it almost made no sense on how the queens were being judged. Some say it was about them branding themselves, but then we have Bebe that made an actual soup can rather than actually something representative of her as a drag queen. I mean, I guess it was a reference to her culture, but still. Regardless, it felt like the weight of the challenge was gonna be on the outfits that each of the queens made in the workroom anyway. To this day, Aja strongly stands behind her Studio 54 look, saying that despite the judges sort of making fun of her for not knowing about her gay history, that she felt like they didn't know what they were talking about because her look was referential to a lot of looks that have been worn during the Studio 54 era. So to her, them being nitpicky about everything felt more like a setup rather than a valid critique.
Because they gave us reference pictures and I literally remade one of the reference picture looks and I was like, okay, this is the look. And then they were just being so nitpicky on like the way I was saying stuff and doing stuff. And I was just sitting there like, you know what? At the end of the day, I feel like this is something Cher would wear to my Studio 54. And the thing is that in that moment, I should have defended myself more, but I didn't want to look bad on camera because I felt scared of being villainized. But like, and deep down inside, I wanted to be like, y'all are playing with me. Because, bitch, look at these bitches. They don't look like they're going to Studio 54, bitch.
Now, it's interesting to know that as this was happening, Aja says that she kind of felt picked on by the production of the show. Specifically the judges, because they were acting as if she was some young gay drag queen who didn't know their gay history. In a sense, it almost seems like production was dead set on making Aja's narrative to go home that episode. Ultimately, as Aja was announced in the bottom 2 for the episode with Shangela, Aja felt very upset about the situation. But she remembered how on season 9, she was placed in the bottom 2 for the very first time and let out her emotions by cussing out Valentina and Untucked. So she decided to, instead of reacting by getting angry, she would instead vent her frustrations by crying, citing that at least then she'd be getting compassion from the viewers at home. When the queens are doing deliberations, Bebe, who was in the top 2, had a one-on-one with Aja, but it had an interesting turnout of events because it seems like Aja couldn't get a word in because Bebe kept talking over her and telling her how amazing she is and that she should already be proud of herself for making it this far in the competition. It seemed that what was aired on TV was actually accurate because Aja talks about how Bebe didn't let her plead her case during deliberation, which was also an unintentional comedic moment because it showed how Bebe didn't even bother to try and hide what her intentions were. So then, Bebe wins her lip sync against Ben de la Creme, revealing that the queen she chose to eliminate is Aja. The first lesson Aja learned after getting eliminated by Bebe was 1, don't make costumes for other people because they'll win and send you home. And the second lesson was that it's just a show. Her time of the show doesn't determine her value, and it doesn't determine her talent either. Aja felt that during season 9, she didn't get the chance to show who she was as an entertainer. So she was very grateful when she got the call to be on All Stars 3, since it meant she had a new opportunity to showcase herself to the world. Moreover, she really did cement herself within the history of the show, with one of the best legacies to come from an All Stars season. Yet, her story doesn't end there. By the end of All Stars 3, we get to the finale, with all the eliminated queens being brought back to be a jury on which which of the top 4 should be able to lip sync for the crown in the top 2. Aja's choices ended up being Kennedy Davenport and Trixie Mattel.
At the end of the day, like, I felt like people was like, oh, but Shangela won. She won Shangela won Snatch Game and she won the musical challenge.
Yes.
But I was like, okay, first of all, I don't think she should have won Snatch Game either. That's the thing, is people, you can't rely on the judges' critique. Sometimes the judges don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Sometimes you gotta go based on what you think. And that's why when they put us to judge, nobody voted for Shangela. So, because we were going based off of what we think, not what they think. My thought was, the first episode, Shangela's talent show. She did a lip sync. It was all right. The second episode, she won, but Mariah Carey in a leotard with a dry wig and that butterfly headpiece is clear. No. So she might have won there, but for me, she didn't. The Bachelor challenge, I think she was really funny. So I was like, you did good, but she wasn't on the top, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Snatch Game, I think I should have won, so of course I don't think she should have won. She did horrible in the disco challenge. And she did horrible as that glitter kitty. And I wasn't there for the last acting challenge that she won. She wasn't on the top for me. But then people be like, oh, well, you thought Kennedy was. Bitch, yes. Kennedy was over to me. Like, I don't know, like, Kennedy was hilarious. She may have had her moment in the bottom. Wait, she might have had some moments in the bottom. They said convince us, and she convinced us.
When the queens were brought back, nobody really wanted to vote for the top 2 of the season. But Ben de la Creme was the one that was putting up the biggest fight.
But she was none of us wanted to vote, but she was the one. She cried. She was like, I feel like this is fucked up. And yeah, I mean, they was like, you gotta do it. And we were like, well.
Regardless, Aja's very proud of what she was able to accomplish in All-Stars 3. To her, it doesn't matter what criticisms she may get from fans, because no one will ever be able to take that moment away from her, except for Bebe. So once All-Stars 3 was over, what would be next for Aja? How is she gonna be able to capitalize not just off of pretty good run on All-Stars, but also the skyrocketing attention that fans were giving her in a positive way, because they also felt that she slayed the season and shouldn't have gone home when she did. Essentially, people were hungry for more Aja content, and Aja was ready to provide us all with what we wanted. At the time, Aja was known for making rap verses that were super catchy, like her verse in Clad or Sitting on a Secret. So it was quite the surprise when she released a music video that was an amalgamation of all her talents being mashed into one. The success of her music video for Finish Her was perhaps the best debut single for any Ru girl in the franchise, featuring of course a Candy Muse cameo. It had everything you needed. She released this right after All-Stars 3 finished airing, and it showcased so many of the looks that she did on the season, along with lyrics that made commentary around the fan perception she received in her Drag Race career. The music video for Finish Her was the start of a brand new era for her. In fact, in May 2018, she released her first EP called In My Feelings, which included classic bops like Finish Her, Brujeria, and I Don't Wanna Brag. The best part of seeing this era of Aja was the amount of fun you could tell she was having, and fans loved her. She was basically now up there with queens like Valentina in terms of a fan base that rallied around a queen. Her followers were quickly growing by the day, along with her bookings now being off the charts. To top it off, she was paving the way for a new branch of Ru girl music, which is something she took very seriously, delivering a great level of quality every time she released a song.
I appreciated it so much. You know, my passion has always been for music and for fashion and like maybe not so much drag. So when I started to use drag as a kind of like bridge to get to, you know, fulfilling what I wanted to do, I felt really honored and inspired that people were kind of riding the wave with me until they weren't.
Things were going so well. Actually, things were going in such a good direction for her career that really the sky was the limit in terms of possibilities. But then what happened? There was a lot going on behind the scenes of her music career. While trying to build on the momentum she was getting, there was so many roadblocks that began appearing. It seems that many different type of influential people within the music industry would sort of brush her off because they were labeling her art as quote drag queen music. So to them, it was a detriment to the song, and they didn't want to invest in her career because of it.
People like let's not play dumb. People use the term drag music as an insult, and it's not like nobody's just saying, "Oh my God, that's so good! It's drag music." Like nobody's saying that. On top of that, you know, to be taken seriously as a musician by other people in music, they can like you, and then the minute that they go, oh, you're like from Drag Race, it gave a lot of that. And like I think people don't understand, like I will be having conversations with like other artists, like to feature on my music and stuff, especially when I had the coin to do so, and people will be like they'll be ready, and then the minute they're like, oh, well, I just looked you up, like you're from Drag Race, and they're like I fuck with the track, but I just feel like my brand doesn't really go with this. And then it was just like people were sitting there, and like of course people who don't know shit, they were like, oh well, these people would love to do a track with somebody from Drag Race. I'm like, no, they wouldn't, girl. Like, I'm telling people from first-hand experience.
At first, her music career began to be the best thing that ever happened to her drag career. She was getting a lot of bookings that were interested in her coming to perform her sets. However, towards the end of 2018, Aja began to really shift the way she was handling her fame with the Drag Race fandom. Aja began to make posts on social media about how she doesn't like when people categorize her music as, quote, drag queen music, and that she would like for people to take her more seriously as a rapper. But it didn't end there. Suddenly, Aja began to show up out of drag to club bookings, leaving fans disappointed. She would then take to Twitter to say that people shouldn't be expecting her to be in drag at her shows, because the main focus should be her music. This is where it began to create a shift in how the fans perceived Aja. Many fans said that Aja shouldn't pretend that Drag Race isn't the reason she became famous, or that all of a sudden fans were going to be okay with paying attention to seeing an advertised drag show only to get Aja barely in any drag. To her, it felt like an insult to her work to categorize her as a drag queen, when she really felt more connected as an artist being known as a rapper. Perhaps the biggest error during this point in time came from the people around her who were giving Aja advice on what to do with her career.
So then my management was like, maybe you need to brand yourself differently. So they were like, stop claiming Drag Race and like, you know, call yourself a musician. And I was like, but at the time I was also doing like burlesque performances, and they were like, well, why don't you like say like, oh, you're an artist who's at the intersection of rap and burlesque? And I was like, I don't know about all that.
Yet the rumors and the negative turmoil of the online fan base ended up catching up to Aja in real life. Soon, people were canceling some of her gigs. It became harder for club promoters to want to invest money into her out of the fear that she wasn't going to be appeasing the crowds.
I'm not gonna lie, like I was very depressed in that era, and it was really hard because like when I started doing music, my gigs actually picked up, my booking rate picked up. Like I was doing gigs in places that I had even other big time promoters hitting up my management like, how did you get Aja over there? Like I've been trying to get, and like I was playing these big venues and having like, it was crazy. Like I was playing, because what I was offering wasn't two numbers and two looks. It was, I was doing a 30-minute to 45-minute set. I was doing long meet and greets. You know, I had a whole experience, and it was very crowd interactive. So I traveled around the world. And that year alone, I was in Asia, South America. But it was tough because all the rumors, like, and people and the internet and everything, it really fucked up my career a lot because people weren't going by what I say. I would show up. I had somebody in the middle of my Australian tour. We're already in Australia, and my manager was with me, and he's like, we gotta like figure this shit out because they want to cancel the Australian tour because people online are saying that you're showing up to your gigs not in drag, and they're threatening us now, and they're gonna sue us and all this stuff. And I'm like, mind you, in my contract, even before that, it has always stated that it is up to my discretion, you know, how I want to perform. And my whole thing was like, how come Milk can show up to a show dressed up, whole man body out, right, a white face and a clown's here, and people were like, yes, but like you know, that was so irritating because there was so much double standards.
Looking back, it's not like Aja is blind about this era. She understands that she made some mistakes with the way she dealt with not just the fan base, but many aspects of her personal career. There was a lot of variables going on when it came to why things started to go so wrong in an era that should have been one of the most successful couple years of her life. It was sort of like she was stuck in this trance where she really did think she was doing things right, not being able to look past the situation till it all began to fade away. Along with that, she was having a challenging time with her own identity, not knowing who she was as a person, so she began to get tired of drag. If you look at her music during this time, her first official album, which by the way, the difference between an EP and an album is pretty much the number of songs. An EP is anything with 6 songs or less, while an album tends to be 7 songs or more. Therefore, while the successful In My Feelings EP had 6 songs, her first official album, titled Box Office, would have a total of 15 songs. When we look at the album artwork that she made for Box Office, you'll notice that it featured her out of drag and in drag. At the time, she explained that it was an expression of differentiating the artist behind the drag character of Aja. But as we know, about a couple years ago, Aja came out as a trans woman, meaning that she must have been going through some identity issues at the time of making this album. To top it off, Aja has said that looking back, it was this exact time period that she also began to start to dislike drag, eventually leading to her quitting drag altogether for a couple years.
I think a lot of people were just kind of being ignorant too, because they didn't really see the things that I was dealing with on the other side, such as my crumbling relationship with drag because of my want to transition, but like I didn't know, it was like a lot going on inside my head.
Identity issues is something that she sort of got used to dealing in her life. Even at the age of 18, she began to take hormones to transition into a girl, but ended up detransitioning after a couple months, feeling that she wanted to live her life as a boy. So I'm happy that currently she's been able to find her footing to begin to build stability in her life. Even though most people think that all drag queens who make it on Drag Race are set for the rest of their life, the negative effects that came from a minor mishap in handling her career in 2019 would really shift the way things went for her. Now, if you've been around the fanbase long enough, you've probably heard the meme of Aja being a burlesque rapper. The origins of this meme come from an interview that Aja did in 2018. Aja said, quote, "I consider myself an artist who raps and performs burlesque," and the fanbase took this and began to refer to Aja as the burlesque rapper. This meme would end up being one of the most popular Drag Race memes to come out of the show. Aja's burlesque rapper era may seem at a surface level as just some funny meme. However, the truth is that it was a time period where the fan base was the most toxic towards her. Pretty much anything Aja did was posted on Reddit and everyone would be making fun of her, regardless of whether it was actually good or bad. One of these examples being when Aja ended up being hired to do a Starbucks campaign, accusing her of pretending to be hired by Starbucks, poking fun at the quality of the campaign to begin with.
I did this Starbucks campaign and I got paid like $50,000 for that campaign. And people were saying that I was pretending to be sponsored by Starbucks, that I was a stock model, like all this stuff. And they were making fun of me. It was like all over Reddit and all over Twitter. And I was just sitting there like, girl, like what? Like, and like, it was even worse because like that trip was so traumatizing for me because like I went on that trip. I flew to LA from Shanghai and in China, literally landed off the plane, went and filmed that commercial and then filmed for the next day. And I remember at the time, my ex was managing me. And he was like, you better not go out. You better not be doing this because I know you were ready and then you're not going to show up on time. And then he went out, went on a fucking coke binge and then cheated on me and then came back at 7 a.m. when I was getting ready to leave. And I remember just sitting there like, I got really dark and really depressed. And it was just kind of like, everybody on the outside was like, oh, she's so argumentative, she's so this and she's so that. But like, you know, I feel like I was screaming for help. And I feel like everyone who was supposedly my friend and close to me just pushed me away and was like, everybody was talking about it and everybody knew, but nobody was telling me nothing. Nobody was stepping up to me and going, Aja, maybe you shouldn't say that online, or maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe they were talking about it with each other.
Now, while Aja's first EP was a huge success with the fan base, the release of her first album in February 2019 was not well received. This wasn't really a surprise because pretty much all the promo from the album was shaded by the negativity of the fans. And then after this, Aja slowly began to fade out of the fan base. She left All Stars 3 being one of the most talked about queens, but ended up being torn down by fans. All of this would cause her to get into a mindset where she was really depressed for a very long time. To this day, she's had struggles with getting her career to where it once was before everything went down the drain. Currently, Aja's going through an era in her life where she's having to hustle a lot in order to be able to have enough money to survive, as well as still engage in her artistic side. She's honed in on her identity coming out as a trans woman, and honestly, despite the struggle, it really seems like she's glowing in her life right now. Even when we saw her on All Stars 8, it was so cool to see the way that she was being celebrated. You could tell in those few seconds that she was on screen that she was so much more sure of herself now than she was when all the drama was going on years ago, showcasing that she was still one of the best performers that have hit that main stage. Even though it would have been better to have her as a contestant, seeing her cameo was just as satisfying. Aja has mentioned online that she expected that lip sync to give her a small boost in bookings, but it never came to be. This is a reasonable expectation since queens like Laganja Estrada on All Star 6 ended up going on tour with the number she performed when she was a lip sync assassin. Plus, Aja versus Kahana is, I think, within the top 3 lip sync of the season, if not the best of All Stars 8. As a side note, when Candy Muse lost season 13, I remember thinking that whenever she inevitably returned to the franchise, then maybe production would have taken the opportunity to showcase the whole house of Aja by casting Candy Muse, Aja, and Dahlia Sin in the same All Stars to see how their family dynamic would fare in the competition. But I guess they didn't want to take that chance. Back when season 9 was airing, Aja made sure to include her house in a lot of opportunities that she received because of Drag Race. In case you don't know, the house of Aja includes Dahlia Sin and Candy Muse before they were on Drag Race, as well as Janelle number 5 that still hasn't gotten on Drag Race. Aja ended up bringing the house of Aja all the way to DragCon, included them in her interview with Hey Queen, along with urging clubs across the country to book her drag family, and made lots of posts on Instagram shouting them out as well. Essentially, it's largely thanks to Aja that Dahlia Sin and Candy Muse began to become known with the mega fans of the show. However, just a couple years later, there would be a fallout in the house of Aja that resulted in Aja sort of leaving or being pushed out of the group, with the rest of the queens renaming themselves the Dollhouse. This is why on season 13 episode 1, Candy sort of brushed off the comment Michelle makes regarding her being a part of the house of Aja. Regardless, nowadays Aja has a great relationship with all of her drag daughters, especially Candy Muse, who has shown a lot of love to her on social media all the time, and vice versa. But I just felt like the house of Aja is such an iconic part of the Drag Race legacy that it had to be mentioned in this video. Now, to many of us, we think of Aja as a drag queen, yet when we go back to even before she began performing in drag, Aja's first love came towards wanting to be a part of the underground culture that was Ballroom, which explains a lot considering just a couple months ago she was on HBO's legendary season 3 with the House of LaBeija. It's that background that set up a lot of variables for why her career would eventually gain her the respect from many people within the New York City scene. There was discussions as to why Aja never showcased the aspect of her life that she was in Ballroom while she was on season 9. But the truth is that when she was a part of Ballroom, she was presenting in a male figure, so she wasn't performing in drag, hence why she never really drew a correlation between that part of her life with being in drag. It's interesting because, as we know, Aja's been very vocal in recent years about the need to protect Ballroom culture, along with the respect that should be shown by those that are taking aspects from it. This, of course, has led to her getting into some online drama, an example being her one-sided drama with Anitra that was a main topic online during the airing of season 15. For context, the winning talent show of the season 15 premiere was Anitra, whose performance was largely based on her duck walking around the stage. But it was pointed out by many people from the Ballroom scene on Twitter that her way of doing the moves was incorrect. One of these people was Aja, who spoke up about the need to respect Ballroom culture, as it's an area that tends to have a lot of people from the outside world stealing their culture.
So I think that people keep going, it's just a dance, it's just a dance. And I'm like, it's not just a dance. I think people need to understand that voguing, before it is a gay thing, it's a black thing. And I think that they need to understand that there's a level of respect that needs to be put on that, because it's such a cultural thing. And I think that people dismiss that because they're like, oh yeah, gay. And I'm like, no, it's not just that. These kids would not go into the middle of motherfucking Harlem and see all these people doing contemporary black dances, like chicken noodle soup, like doing like Dougie and Stanky Leg, and be like, oh my God, yes, let's do that. They're not gonna do that. So that's one. And two, I feel like a lot of people, I don't care if the girls vogue. If the girls want to vogue, go and fucking vogue, bitch. It's when people try to monetize voguing. That's what pisses me off. It's like trying to make money and brand voguing when you don't know how to vogue and you're not part of the scene is disrespectful, because there are people in the scene who don't get opportunities because then they'll go, oh, well, I need a voguing queen. Oh, actually, let me go get, Clarissa. She was on Drag Race. Let me go get her. You know, she did the little 1-2, the little gay dance. And it's like, no, like, why don't you go to the scene and book like a starving Black artist? Like, why don't you book somebody who's like from the actual scene? And like, that's what pisses me off.
Yet, the most important factor that comes out of the story of Aja calling out the nogging online is the conversation it created around the culture that for a long time wasn't really all that known within the general part of the gay scene. I feel like it was such a good learning lesson for many people, but ultimately it was understood that it's not so much that queens aren't allowed to try doing the moves. Of course they can partake in it. The important thing is that they're making sure to pay the respects to the community that it came from. Plus, I think regardless of the technique you have, it's a very impressive move to be able to do in general. Currently though, it seems that Aja is having a kind of resurgence with the fanbase. Suddenly, people are talking about her in a more positive manner, so I think now would be a perfect time to invite her back to the show. But as we know, the cast that we've gotten for All-Star seasons lately seem as if casting producers just picked them out of a hat, so who knows what will happen.
It's funny because like I feel like I have become like the starving artist again, and it's inspiring to me because like I feel more creative than I've ever been. Like now I feel like I feel inspired to come out with all these looks and do all this stuff, and it's like, okay, like I like that. I feel like it's funny because people were so intent on humbling me, but like I don't think what people realize is that life has always humbled me. Like people don't know my backstory. They don't know the shit that I've been through. They don't know like how I got to where I am, how much I was like abused, and how much shit I've like had to get through to get to where I am today. They just see this and they go, she's a bitch.
I'm so happy that Aja is the third inductee into the Green Gay Hall of Fame. I wanted to remind you all that if you'd like to donate a tip to Aja, you can do so by sending it to her by any of the options on the screen. I will also list them in the description below. And let me know who you think should be the next inductee into the Interviewed by Green Gay Hall of Fame. I want to take a moment to thank my patrons. In the Elite Pink Squad, we have Matthew Burns, Gay Uncle, Wendell Norris Realtor, Tyler Hendricks MD, Poppers Alberta, Sari Tish, and Natasha De Leon. In the Green Squad, we have Azure, Cayman Rider Furry, Franny Fishsticks, Edgar Allan Pup, O Nicole, The Only Sean, IJS, Not a Punch But a Keek, James Go RMT, and of course, Jack Beck. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to comment some love for Aja down below and check out her social medias as well. Also, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter @GreenGayYT, and I'll see you guys next time.